Hey, this is Ciderhelm, and in this video I'm going to be covering the passive and active skills of the monk class. So this is my monk here, and I want to just kind of jump into, well, let's start with the passive skills like we have on each of the other videos so far. So your passive skills unlock at level 10, so I had to play through again to actually reach level 10 so I could actually see all of these. So they unlock at level 10, and at level 10 you can have one passive skill active. At level 20 you can have a second, at level 30 you can have a third. And these are all interchangeable on the fly, at least as of right now in the beta. So for right now I have Resolve, but I could easily pick Guardian's Path and just switch it out when I want to. So let's go ahead and start explaining each of these, or start discussing each of these passive skills. We'll jump into the active skills right afterward. So, Resolve. Damage you deal reduces enemy damage by 10% for 2.5 seconds. So, from what I've seen, when I actually have been using this and been fighting enemies, it's not a buff applied to myself, so damage you deal reduces enemy damage by 10% for 2.5 seconds. As far as I know, that just means that anything that you hit, their damage is reduced by 10%. For 2.5 seconds, you know, in the beta, that means pretty much it's dead unless it's like the Skeleton King. But anyway, so what you attack, reduced damage coming from it. The Guardian's Path. While dual wielding, you gain a 10% chance to dodge incoming attacks. While using a two-handed weapon, all spirit generation is increased by 20%. Okay, so right now I have a two-handed weapon. The interesting thing about the two-handed weapon, which may be annoying to some people, and I know some people were complaining about this, with a two-handed weapon, I still attack with my fist. The two-handed weapon is just a stat stick. It is nothing else that I'm aware of. I'm still just doing fist attacks, and for some reason I'm holding the weapon, and then immediately put it on my back to do any attacks. So that is what it is. Enjoy it. So anyway, and the other alternative, obviously, if you weren't aware of this, and I don't think I showed this in the playthrough, you can have two fist weapons on, and obviously if you're attacking with your fists... Actually, if you look real closely, the fists actually disappear in the animation. I don't know that matters. I don't know if anybody cares about that, but the actual art of the fist weapons does disappear during the animation. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump back in here. So there's a difference between two-handed and one-handed. Fleet-footed. Increased base movement speed by 10%, so you just move faster. Not much to say there. It could be very useful depending on what you're trying to do. Transcendence. Every point of spirit spent heals you for 1.7 life. Now, spirit is your resource bar. You generate spirit by attacking, basically. So anyway... You have 200 of it. It's like Fury for the Barbarian. Unlike Fury for the Barbarian, it doesn't decay over time. Also, unlike Fury for the Barbarian, you can't just attack destructible objects to gain it, to refresh it. Spirit is basically, you build it, you have it permanently until you spend it. So anyway, every point of spirit spent heals you for 1.7 life. So example of an ability, Breath of Heaven, spends 75 spirit. Crippling Wave, okay, that's generating spirit. Dashing Strike, 10 spirit. So a cost of 10 spirit, what's that going to give me? 17 life back by using a dash. So that's that passive. Chant of Resonance. Duration of all mantras increased by 2 minutes. While one of your mantras is active, you gain 1 spirit every 6 or every second. Okay, so your mantras are buffs. Let's go ahead and jump into the active skills, and I'll just show you. Mantra of Evasion, Mantra of Retribution, Mantra of Healing, Mantra of Conviction. These are all at the bottom. They are all just buffs. They all last for 2 minutes on their own, so this is doubling the duration of it. They're pretty easy to keep up. So I'm not sure, I mean, this is kind of like if you happen to forget or you're not very good at maintaining your buffs, this will help you. However, while one of your mantras is active, you gain 1 spirit every second. That's kind of the important part of that, again, because actually applying the mantras and keeping them up is not difficult. Seize the Initiative. Your defense is increased by 25% of your attack. Pretty straightforward stat conversion. Exalted Soul. Increase maximum spirit by 30. Spirit fuels your whatever, flavor text. Okay, so again, it's at 200, and so with this, you get up to 230 as far as your maximum spirit. Could be useful depending on the abilities you're trying to use. Again, there are some high-cost abilities, such as the Breath of Heaven, 75 spirit. Okay, Sixth Sense. Let's see, I'm in the right place, right? Sixth Sense. Your dodge chance is increased by an amount equal to 50% of your chance to critical hit. Okay, so, again, a monk, pretty straightforward. This is kind of the monk playstyle, being able to have a high chance high evasion. Another straight stat conversion, just like Seize the Initiative, your defense is increased by 25% of your attack. Pacifism. While stunned, feared, or charmed, all damage taken is reduced by 75%. So there you go. If you're CC'd, you're going to probably make it through it. Near-death experience. When receiving fatal damage, you are instead restored to 35% of maximum life and 35% spirit. This effect cannot occur more than once every 1.5 minutes. So very, very quick cooldown on that. If you are going to die, you'll come back to life. Number of abilities across multiple games. I believe Paladins had this in World of Warcraft. So there you have it. Pretty good, especially at a 1.5-minute cooldown, but I don't know how frequently you'd want it. It's a save, but you'd have to give up something else to have it. Guiding Light. Whenever you heal another player with an active skill, you and the other player deal 16% more damage for 10 seconds. Again, straightforward, probably useful. One with everything. Your resistance to all elements is equal to your highest elemental resistance. That could be very interesting. Again, it depends on how you're playing, and it depends on what we're going to see later in the game here. Beacon of Atar. The cooldown on your Lashing Tail Kick, Seven-Sided Strike, and Wave of Light abilities is removed, but their spirit cost is increased by 50%. Now this, I believe, is only the second ability I've seen, and I believe the last one was on the Witch Doctor, where you actually have a trade-off here. So you don't have a cooldown anymore on these abilities, but their cost is increased. So there may be other factors in this that help us regenerate spirit or reduce the cost of spirit. I don't know, but other things would make this a viable option for you. So anyway, that's an interesting trade-off that you have to make. Let's see how it plays out in the game. We don't know because the beta is limited. Okay, so again, the passive skills, you can have 3 of them by the time you're level 30. Let's go ahead and jump into the active skills. I'll go ahead and start with the spirit generators. As the name implies, these are what generate spirit for you to use. Fists of Thunder. Deal a series of extremely fast punches that deal 100% weapon damage as lightning damage. Each strike has a 15% chance to interrupt the enemy attacks. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick this up, and then I'll show you something real quick. Now you see the speed on this. This is actually very fast. Now even though I'm attacking with fists, if I go to a two-handed weapon, it is much, much slower. So there is no animation, but I am taking a penalty on my speed for using a two-handed weapon. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump over to, what's the next ability? Deadly Reach. Project lines of pure force over a short distance for 125% weapon damage. So it's more damage than Fists of Thunder, generates the same amount of spirit, and now as you see here, this is, it will pass through enemies, it will do stuff. It's a very tight cone. If it's a cone at all, it's just a straight line, or if it's not a cone, it's a straight line. But it will do damage to multiple enemies if you are hitting multiple enemies. It is not true AoE, and it's not even as good as a cone. It's nothing like, say, Fire Bats from the Witch Doctor, which is an awesome ability. Okay, Deadly Reach. Let's go ahead and jump over to Crippling Wave. Now, Crippling Wave is when you get your first true AoE. Hopefully I'm not mistaking that. This is when you get your first true AoE that you can use all the time, and this is generating spirit. A series of large sweeping attacks that causes 100% weapon damage to all enemies in front of you. And then I believe the third attack does enemies all around you. I'm not going to say that for 100% sure. Crippling Wave attacks daze enemies, slowing movement by 50% for 1.5 seconds. So basically, when you hit everybody with this, you're also going to daze them. Yeah, so here it is. Pretty cool ability. And this is my bread and butter ability. As soon as I got it, I immediately switched to using it basically for everything. It is not the best single target ability, but it's a fantastic ability to use in almost all situations that we've seen. You know, and because I don't want to switch out for every little situation, I just put this as my stock ability. Okay, so let's go ahead and demonstrate real quick. Now, I haven't actually tried this, but let's demonstrate this. So, again, much slower with our little stat stick here, the Diablo. Okay, Crippling Wave. Next ability, Exploding Palm, 6 spirit per attack. The first 2 strikes in the attack deal 100% weapon damage. The third strike causes a target to bleed for 65% of weapon damage per second for 3 seconds. If the target dies while bleeding, it explodes, dealing 40% of the target's maximum life as physical damage to all other enemies nearby. Okay, so this is pretty interesting. I haven't been able to use this because I am only level 10. It would be available to me in the beta if I wanted to level to 12 here. I don't know if I will be doing that for the beta. But this is a pretty interesting ability. I can't say too much about it. I can say it would be interesting to use that on a boss if the boss had multiple minions still alive, because it would probably kill all of them. So let's go ahead and move on to the next ability here. Sweeping Wind, strike a target for 100% weapon damage. Every third hit creates a vortex of air that surrounds you. The vortex of air lasts 5 seconds and deals 20% weapon damage per second to all enemies within 10 yards. This vortex effect can stack up to 3 times for a total of 60% weapon damage per second to nearby enemies. Okay, so I'm not sure whether this is going to... Obviously, this is going to be a good ability, and they have something in mind with it. But I'm not sure how it's going to play out against, say, Crippling Wave, which, again, you get a lot of damage out. This Sweeping Wind seems to me, I could be totally wrong here. Okay, strike a target for 100% weapon damage. It's going to be situational. Both of these are situational. The Crippling Wave is primarily stuff in front of you, where Sweeping Wind is going to be stuff all around you. 10 yards is a pretty short distance. It's not that big. You know, take it for what it is. We just have no way of testing this in the beta client, so I can't tell you much more about it. Okay, Way of the 100 Fists, 6 spirit per attack. A rapid series of punches strikes enemies for 135% weapon damage. Don't know anything about how good this will be. I just don't know. We can't test it. Rapid series of punches strike enemies for 135% weapon damage. How fast are those punches? That's kind of key to the ability. Okay. Blinding Flash. This is the ability, this is the one ability along with Fists of Thunder that you have available as soon as you start the game. Create a flash of light that blinds all enemies within 20 yards for 5 seconds. Blinded enemies have a 30% chance to miss with attacks and will not attack unless they are attacked first. This ability, unfortunately I don't have any spirit here, this ability is kind of bad. They give it to you at level 1. There's no purpose for it at level 1. There's no purpose for it for quite a while, because it doesn't deal any damage. So you're giving up something. I guess at level 1 you're not giving up anything, but you are basically giving up a slot as soon as you have other abilities that could be helping you out with damage. For Blinding Flash, Blinding Flash is kind of like Caltrops on the Demon Hunter. It's not useful because there's nothing that is threatening enough to you early on. Anyway, so obviously it will have a use later on. As you have a larger toolkit available to you, it will be very good. And the toolkit, what I'm referring to is the active skills here. You can only have a certain number available to you at any given time. So by the time you're level 24, as you can see, you can have all 6, or you can have 6 slots available to you, where you can have 6 abilities available to you on your hotbars, etc. But when you start out, you only have 2, then you gain 3, and then by level 10 or level 12, you gain 4. And you can just see the progression there. I believe level 9 is where we gained our 3rd one. Could be wrong on that. Maybe it was level 6. I don't know. Anyway, next ability, Breath of Heaven. A blast of holy energy heals you and all allies within 12 yards for 129 to 172 life. Pretty good ability. Like, this is just a stock heal. I had it on my hotbar from a very early point, just because it heals you, right? If you're low on life, it heals you. It's like the health potion. It's available to you if if this is one of your stock abilities and you don't have many abilities. Frankly, I'm not spending my spirit very much, so I have this available to me, and that's just very convenient. The Breath of Heaven, I don't know how it scales, don't know anything like that, but it was a very good ability to have while leveling, especially before I've gotten other abilities or had other abilities available to me. Okay, Lashing Tail Kick. Unleash a deadly roundhouse kick, knocking enemies back and dealing 130% weapon damage. Okay, so here's what I want to do. Let's go ahead and dismiss our... Yeah, alright, he's back to nutrition. Let's go ahead and dismiss this guy. I'll unzoom the camera, and let's go generate some fury. Oh, I probably need to get a generator to do this. Show off Crippling Wave a little bit here. So I've got to find some enemies. Hopefully, here we go. Not going to do anything too spectacular because I'm holding down my middle mouse button to actually talk at the same time. It looks like that was frontal. It looks like it didn't deal damage behind me. I could be wrong on that, but anyway. So we've got quite a full spirit bar now. Let's actually show off a couple of these abilities, particularly Dashing Strike. That's not the one we're going to do now. Lashing Tail Kick. I don't want to use my heal because my heal will take up most of this, and I'm not sure where other enemies are going to be. So here's my Lashing Tail Kick. Pretty good, except it has a cooldown. So it's your first... You get it before you get Crippling Wave, but it does take up a lot of spirit. Not that much spirit, but, you know, it will eat up your spirit, and it has a 6-second cooldown. So good to use with Crippling Wave, but again, you only have a certain number of skills actually available to you at any given time. So it was hard for me to justify having something on the 6-second cooldown, when usually... You know, I could maybe get some mobs out of the way, but usually I wanted to use it again to clear out a full wave of mobs before that 6 seconds was up. So, take it for what it is. It's good. I'm not sure I'm not going to... It's something... okay, also, just to throw this in here. Obviously, the cooldown on your Lashing Tail Kick, this is the Lashing Tail Kick. The passive ability, level 30, gets rid of that cooldown. So it could be just amazing, but the cost will go up pretty substantially there. Anyway, coming back into this... Dashing Strike, so unleash a deadly roundhouse kick, knocking enemies back and dealing 130% weapon damage. That's what the Lashing Tail Kick was. Dashing Strike, dash quickly at the targeted enemy or location, dealing 50% weapon damage. Okay, so check this out. This is my mouse, although you can't see my mouse is way down in the corner here. And when I click this, I only go a very short distance. Now, when I was going through the playthrough, I didn't realize that it can actually go much further than that, but only if I have a target. So let's go find a target. I guess we do need to do this. And... anything? Here's some good targets. I can go really far. Like the Furious Leap on the Barbarian. You can go really, really far, and it's on a... It doesn't have a cooldown. It's a very low spirit cost, and you're generating that spirit by getting a few attacks in. So I can basically be constantly using this, and I am constantly using this during the playthroughs. So I've got these wooden barricades over here. I believe I can target those just as well. No. Okay, that was a lie. So I can't get the full distance on those. But certainly, it's a very short distance if you use it without a target. It's a very long distance if you use it with a target. It will not go over terrain like the Barbarian's Leap. But other than that, it's very versatile, very, very quick. It doesn't have the cooldown. It's kind of like Vayne's, except... Or not... that's embarrassing. Like Vayne from League of Legends. No, it's kind of like the Demon Hunter from Diablo 3. Yeah, except that unlike the Demon Hunter, who can only get 3 and maybe 4 with a few of her passives up, or, you know, the preparation, this guy can use it all of the time in combat, get in, get out, move around, go to the casters, and that's what I found myself using it for, is just kind of switching between the casters all around. Hopefully I didn't spend too much of my... Well, I don't have much else to spend on anyway. Okay, Lethal Decoy. Create an illusion of pure holy energy that attracts enemies to itself and explodes after 5 seconds for 9 to 17 holy damage. This was very clunky. Now, I didn't really have much of a use for it, so that's probably part of why I felt it was clunky. I believe I used it in the playthrough, so you could, if you want to see it, look at it in there. But basically, I create a copy of myself, and enemies that are near it will go to it, and then it explodes after 5 seconds. It's straightforward. Just a weird ability, and I didn't want to waste a slot on it. So I'm sure it'll be useful, but, you know, it's just not my playstyle. Take it for what it is. Inner Sanctuary, 80 Spirit. Create a circle of protection on the ground for 8 seconds that cannot be passed by enemies. 80 Spirit is a high cost, but an 8-second barrier is good. Tempest Rush. 3 Spirit plus an additional... Actually, I wonder about this. Create a circle of protection on the ground for 8 seconds that cannot be passed by enemies. I do wonder, Inner Sanctuary, whether you can trap enemies inside of it. I don't know. In fact, I might want to look at this before I'm done with the beta here. So at some point I might level up and just say, you know, what is Inner Sanctuary? Is it good or is it bad? We'll find out. I'll report back on it. Tempest Rush. 3 Spirit plus an additional 12 Spirit per second. Run directly through your enemies, knocking them back and hobbling them, slowing their movement by 40% for 3 seconds. Also deals 75% of weapon damage per second while running. I don't know if you can channel this and keep it up or what. Run directly through your enemies, knocking them back and hobbling them, slowing their... Yeah, no way of testing it. No idea how good it is. No idea the mechanics behind it, whether it's just something channeled. Just no idea. Serenity. If you are enveloped in a protective shield that intercepts all incoming damage for 3 seconds and grants immunity to all control impairing effects. Low spirit cost, only 35, but it does have a cooldown. 1 minute cooldown, so it's situational. For 3 seconds, that's a good situational ability, especially if you're going to be playing a little tank-like. 7-sided strike, 50 spirit, 60 seconds, so another 1 minute cooldown. Dash rapidly between many nearby enemies 7 times, striking for 130% weapon damage with every hit. Pretty cool. So I don't know how quickly that'll go through. It says dash rapidly between them, 7 times, striking for 130% weapon damage with every hit. So I'm assuming it'll randomly select 7 enemies. I don't know. Hopefully that is done very, very quickly. It's only 50 spirit. 50 spirit's a quarter of your spirit bar. But, you know, it's a minute cooldown, so situationally it could be very, very amazing. Don't know anything about it. Again, don't have a way of testing it in the beta. Mystic Ally. Summon an elemental ally capable of engaging enemies in combat until it is destroyed. The ally deals 9 to 16 physical damage per swing. Mystic Ally, I don't know whether this is a pet. Some of the other classes have pets that stay up basically permanently until they're dead. This sounds like it because there's nothing saying... Well, one of the things it doesn't have is a cooldown, so I don't know if you can have several of them up or you can only have one up at a time. It doesn't have a cooldown preventing it from being resummoned, which is a little different than, say, the Demon Hound, the Demon Hounds or the Hellhounds, I don't remember, from the Witch Doctor, where they do have like a, I think, of 1 minute cooldown before you can summon them again. So take it for what it is. I don't know. Summon an elemental ally capable of engaging enemies in combat until it is destroyed. I don't know if this is something like the Decoy, where the enemies are actually going to want to actively destroy it. Okay, Wave of Light, final ability in the Spirit Spender section. 50 Spirit, cooldown 30 seconds, quicker cooldown here. It focuses the power of light to smite all enemies in front of you for 26 to 39 holy damage, followed by an additional 16 to 26 holy damage to all enemies in a line. So what you've got is a frontal cone, it sounds like, and then a line attack. We'll have to see the damage on it. I don't know how the damage is going to scale. I don't know whether it's going to be amazing. But at 30-second cooldown, it better be amazing, because we'll want to be using it. Okay, the mantras. The mantras are basically buffs, just self-buffs, and they don't have a cost to them. So let's go ahead and put these on. Okay, so I've got 2 mantras up. I can only have 1 up at a time, and the other thing about this is, right now, as you see, I have Mantra of Retribution up. It has a 2-minute cooldown, but watch this. As soon as I change this, it immediately disappears. So I am no longer able, or I'm not able to switch out abilities and keep that buff. That's like the Barbarian. It is, from what I saw very briefly, unlike the other classes we've seen where you can switch some abilities, but the debuffs buffs will remain active. So in this case, if I switch out one of these mantras are temporary, about 2-minute buffs. If I switch out one of them in my skill slot, it will disappear from me and I will not be able to maintain it. So there's not going to be any kind of swapping here to take advantage of the system. Okay, so what do they actually do? Mantra of Evasion, cooldown 30 seconds. Recite a mantra that grants you and all allies within 40 yards a 30% chance to dodge attacks. Lasts 2 minutes. Again, you get this pretty early. I had no use for it during the beta. It's just damage reduction is not the key during the beta because there's nothing terribly difficult. If you want the dodge, the 30% chance to dodge is interesting. It could be amazing. It might not be. The thing is, it combines with several other abilities, particularly your passives. Let's see if I can find any of these. So, yeah, your dodge chance is increased by an amount equal to 50% of your chance to critical hit. Things like that. These will add together. I don't know whether it's going to be additive scaling or multiplicative scaling. I don't know exactly how all the evasion stats are going to stack with each other, but the monk should be, or is, a class designed to get high dodge if you so choose to do so. And that will be a primary source of reducing incoming damage. Obviously there are other options as well, like the 3% or 3-second immunity. So you've got a lot of cool situational abilities plus very high evasion chance. That's what it is. Mantra of Retribution. Recite a mantra that causes you and all allies within 40 yards to reflect melee damage back at enemies, dealing holy damage equal to 30% of the damage sustained. Lasts 120 seconds. This is another one where I'm just not sure how it's going to play out. I'm not sure, exactly the math and mechanics behind it, but okay, so you're dealing holy damage equal to 30% of the damage sustained. If that's referring to damage you take after everything's been applied, well, if it's on yourself and you're dodging a lot of incoming attacks, which I guess this is Mantra of Retribution is different from Mantra of Evasion. It looks like you cannot have both up at the same time from the same class or from the same player. So if you were dodging a lot of incoming attacks, or if you're with a player, say, who's actually tanking like your Templar, who's reducing a lot of the incoming damage fairly substantially, I'm not sure if there's going to be a negative side to this, where this becomes less and less useful as you have more gear for the content you're doing. But that's what it is. It seems pretty useful. It's not like it's a bad thing. And by the time you have it, I think you have your 3rd slot. There was no reason not to have it, so I actually put it on my bar because I could have my Crippling Wave, my Dashing Strike, and my Mantra of Retribution all up at the same time. Breath of Heaven obviously was very, very good too, and I've had that up for most of the time too, so I must have switched Breath of Heaven and the Mantra of Retribution back at some point. Anyway, good ability, but just not sure how it's going to scale later game. And obviously this is a game where you go back, you complete normal, then you go through a harder difficulty, then you go through a harder difficulty. There is always harder content. I'm just kind of, maybe that's just my MMO gamer inside of me, because I always think of it in terms of an end game, but there really isn't so much of an end game in Diablo 3, as far as I'm aware. Mantra of Healing, cooldown 30 seconds. Recite a mantra that causes you and all allies within 40 yards to gain increased life regeneration by 4.7 life per second. Lasts 2 minutes. Okay, so just a regeneration aura. I don't know how it'll scale. I don't know how much life I'm going to have at whatever level. What is this? 14. And I'm not sure if these abilities are actually like scaling per my level. So 4.7 by the time I'm actually level 14. That might actually be higher. I just don't know. And I can't test it in the beta because it's 1 level too high. Okay, Mantra of Conviction. Cooldown 30 seconds. Recite a mantra that causes all enemies within 20 yards of you to take 25% additional damage. Lasts 2 minutes. This is fantastic. Now, of course, I can't absolutely test this. I can't get in and make sure that it works as advertised. But recite a mantra that causes all enemies within 20 yards of you to take 25% additional damage. I assume that this is an aura, so anytime anything is within 20 yards of me, it will take 25% additional damage. I'm hoping that's the case. Certainly I hope it's not something where it's only when I first apply it. But we can assume based on the other ones that it probably is an aura that will always be active. Everything within 20 yards will take more damage. And among these, that's probably going to be the best one, especially in group content. You might have a use for Mantra of Evasion if you're trying to be the one taking the heavy hits, or avoiding the heavy hits, as it were. Anyway, active skills, as I already mentioned, you can only have a certain number available to you at a given time. You can have up to 6, and they do all unlock by the time you're level 24. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I think I covered pretty much everything there is with the abilities. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you for watching.